Christlichen Literature, Leipzig, 1896, Volume 14, pages 8, 9. It has been suggested that Matthew, after compiling his account in Hebrew, may have personally translated it into Koine, the common Greek. Information unique to Matthew's Gospel. An examination of Matthew's account shows that more than 40% of the material contained therein is not found in the other three Gospels. Unique is Matthew's genealogy of Jesus Mount 1:16, which takes an approach different from that set out by Luke 3:23-38. A comparison of the two indicates that Matthew gave the legal genealogy through Jesus' adoptive father Joseph, while Luke apparently gave Jesus' natural genealogy. Other incidents mentioned only in Matthew's account are Joseph's reaction to Mary's pregnancy, the appearance of an angel to Joseph in a dream Mount 1:18-25, the visit of the astrologers, the flight to Egypt, the slaughter of the young. The Apostle Matthew's account of Jesus' life. Written primarily with the Jews in mind, this gospel demonstrates that Jesus is the foretold Messianic King. The first gospel written, it was likely composed initially in Hebrew about 8 years after the death and resurrection of Christ. Details of Jesus' life fulfill Messianic prophecies. Jesus is born of a virgin, an offspring of Abraham in David's line, at Bethlehem 1:23. 1:6 Baby boy is slaughtered. He is called out of Egypt 14:18 He grows up in Nazareth. John the Baptizer prepares the way for him 23. 3. He proves to be a light in Galilee 4:13-16 He performs many miraculous healings 8:16-17 He gladly helps the lowly ones 12:10-21 He teaches, using illustrations. The hearts of many people are unreceptive 13:10-15, 34:35 Jesus rides into Jerusalem on the colt of an ass. He is hailed as the son of David by the crowds, but rejected by Jewish builders 1:11-15, 42 Judas betrays him for 30 silver pieces, which money is later used to buy a potter's field 26:14-15, 48-49. 27. 3:10 His disciples are scattered 26:31 Jesus is in the tomb for parts of 3 days 12:39-40 Jesus proclaims the good news of God's kingdom after John's arrest. Jesus proclaims, "The kingdom of the heavens has drawn near." 12:23 He visits all the cities and villages of Galilee to preach the good news of the kingdom 9:35 He instructs his 12 disciples and sends them out to preach about the kingdom 10:11 He reveals truths about the kingdom, telling the parables of the sower, the wheat and weeds, the mustard grain, the leaven, treasure hidden in a field, a pearl of high value, a dragnet, workers in a vineyard, 2 sons, wicked cultivators, and a marriage feast for a king's son 13:3-50 20 1:16 21 28-41 22 1:14 He answers his disciples' question about the sign of his presence, including in his answer a forecast of global preaching of the kingdom good news 24:3 25 46 Jesus exposes the hypocrisy of the religious leaders. He shows that they misrepresent the purpose of the Sabbath and that their traditions invalidate God's word 12:3-7 15 1:14 He exposes their lack of faith, their murderous spirit, their hypocrisy and pride 12:24-42 16 1:4 21 43-45 23 2-36 He lays bare their utter disregard for justice, mercy, and faithfulness 23 24 9 11-13 Jesus gives fine counsel to his followers in the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus shows why his disciples would be truly happy. He warns against wrath and urges them to make peace with one another and to love even their enemies. He tells of the danger of adulterous thoughts. He counsels against hypocrisy. O texto e acute miritra longo. Matthias 354 Boys in Bethlehem and its districts Chapter 2, and the dream of Pilate's wife regarding Jesus 27. 19. at least 10 parables, or illustrations, found in Matthew's account are not mentioned in the other Gospels. These include 4 in chapter 13, those of the weeds in the field, the hidden treasure, the one pearl of high value, and the dragnet. Others are the illustrations of the unmerciful slave Mount 18. 23-35, the workers in the vineyard 20. 1-16, the marriage of the king's son 22. 1-14, the 10 virgins 25. 1-13, and the talents 25. 14-30. At times Matthew provides supplementary details. Although material from the Sermon on the Mount also appears in Luke's account Luke 6. 17-49, Matthew's Gospel is far more extensive in this respect. Mount 5. 1. 7. 29. Whereas Mark, Luke, and John mention the miraculous feeding of about 5,000 men, Matthew adds besides women and young children. Mount 14. 21. Mr. 6. 44. Luke 9. 14. Joe 6. 10. Matthew mentions 2 demon-possessed men encountered by Jesus in the country of the Gadarenes, while Mark and Luke refer to only 1. Mount 8. 28. Mr. 5. 2. Luke 8. 27. Matthew also tells of 2 blind men being healed on an occasion, whereas Mark and Luke mention only 1. Mount 20. 29, 30. Mr. 10. 46, 47. Luke 18. 35, 38. Of course, all the writers were correct in that at least one person was involved in each incident. But Matthew was often more explicit as to number. This perhaps is to be attributed to his former occupation as a tax collector. Matthew's use of the Hebrew Scriptures. It has been estimated that Matthew's Gospel contains about 100 references to the Hebrew Scriptures. About 40 of these are actual quotations of passages. These include Christ's own quotations from and allusions to the Hebrew Scriptures, among which are the following. A man's enemies to be persons of his own household Mount 10. 35, 36. Mik 7. 6. John the Baptizer identified as the Elijah to come Mount 11. 13, 14. 17. 11-13. Mal 4. 5. Jesus and Jonah's experiences compared Mount 12. 40. John 1. 17. Commandment on honoring parents Mount 15. 4. Acts 20. 12. 21. 17. Rendering lip service to God Mount 15. 8, 9. Isra 29. 13. Need for 2 or 3 witnesses Mount 18. 16. 19. 15. Statements on marriage Mount 19. 4-6. G1. 27. 2. 24. Various commandments Mount 5. 21, 27, 38. 19. 18, 19. Acts 20. 12-16. 21. 24. 19. 18. 24. 20. 19. 21. The temple made into a cave of robbers Mount 21. 13. Isra 56. 7. J7. 11. Rejection of Jesus, the stone that became the chief cornerstone Mount 21. 42. PS 118. 22, 23. Foes of David's Lord put under his feet Mount 22. 44. PS 110. 1. Disgusting thing in the holy place Mount 24. 15. Dar 9. 27. Jesus' disciples scattered Mount 26. 31. Zek 13. 7. Christ apparently forsaken by God Mount 27. 46. PS 22. 1. There are also Jesus' statements used in resisting Satan's temptations. Mount 4, 4, 7, 10. 8, 3, 6, 16, 13. Interesting, too, is Matthew's inspired application of Hebrew scripture prophecies to Jesus, proving him to be the promised Messiah. This aspect would have been of particular concern to the Jews, for whom the account seems to have been originally intended. The prophecies include Jesus being born of a virgin, Mount 1, 23. Issa 7, 14. His birth in Bethlehem, Mount 2, 6. Mic 5, 2. His being called out of Egypt, Mount 2, 15. Ho 11, 1. The lamentation over the death of slaughtered children, Mount 2, 16-18. J 31, 15. John the Baptist is preparing the way before Jesus, Mount 3, 1-3. Issa 40, 3. Jesus' ministry bringing light, Mount 4, 13-16. Issa 9, 1, 2. His carrying of illnesses, Mount 8, 14-17. Issa 53, 4. His use of illustrations, Mount 13, 34, 35. PS 78. 2. Jesus' entry into Jerusalem on the colt of an ass, Mount 21, 4, 5. Zech 9, 9. The betrayal of Christ for 30 pieces of silver, Mount 26, 14, 15. Zech 11, 12. An accurate, beneficial record. Matthew, being a close associate of Christ during Jesus' later years of life on earth and thus an eyewitness of his ministry, o textui acute miritra longo, Mazaroth constellation 355 ported in the Bible of the lots being resorted to in determining Jehovah's choice in a matter. Act 1, 15-26. According to Peter's words, Act 1, 21, 22, Matthias had been a follower of Christ throughout Jesus' 3.5-year ministry, had been closely associated with the apostles, and was quite likely one of the 70 disciples or evangelists whom Jesus sent out to preach. Luke 10, 1. After his selection, he was reckoned along with the 11 apostles by the congregation. Act 1, 26, and when the book of Acts immediately thereafter speaks of the apostles or the 12, Matthias was included. Act 2, 37, 43. 4. 33, 36. 5. 12, 29. 6. 2, 6. 8. 1, 14. See Paul. Matithia mat middle.t our gift of Jehovah. 1. Elvi who played a harp when the Ark of the Covenant was brought to Jerusalem from the house of Obed-Edom. 1 ch 15. 17-21, 25. Probably this same Matithia was one of the Levite musicians whom David put before the ark both to call to remembrance and to thank and praise Jehovah the God of Israel. 1 ch 16. 4, 5. And was the individual who was later selected by lot from among the sons of Jeduthun to head the 14th division of 12 Levite musicians. 1 ch 25. 1, 3, 9, 21. 2. A Kohathite Levite of the family of Korah and the firstborn son of Shalom. This Matithia was among the Levites returning from a Babylonian exile and was in the office of trust over the things baked in pans. 1 ch 9. 31, 32. 3. A Levite or priest who stood at Ezra's right hand when the copyists read the law of Moses to the Jews assembled in Jerusalem. Any 8. 1, 4. 4. An Israelite of the sons of Nebo who was among those accepting foreign wives, but who sent them away along with sons in Ezra's day. Ez 10. 25, 43, 44. Maturity. The state of being full-grown, ripe, complete, as determined by a standard. See perfection. The Bible provides the standard for ascertaining what constitutes spiritual maturity completeness. According to this standard, The mature Christian is one who is not a spiritual babe, often changeable and easily led astray or influenced by others in matters of doctrine. F4. 11-14 Since his perceptive powers are trained, he is able to distinguish both right and wrong. He does not need to be taught elementary things. Heb 5. 11. 6. 2 He is guided, not by worldly wisdom, but by God's Spirit. 1 Co 2. 6, 10-13, FTN. Never does the Bible speak about degrees or stages of spiritual maturity or adulthood. However, just as a person continues to grow in knowledge, experience, and discernment after becoming an adult, the mature Christian likewise continues to make progress. Trials that he has can strengthen his faith and endurance. Wrote the disciple James. Consider it all joy, my brothers, when you meet with various trials, knowing as you do that this tested quality of your faith works out endurance. But let endurance have its work complete, that you may be complete, literally, perfect and sound in all respects, not lacking in anything. Ches 1. 2-4 Similarly, as adults will vary in physical aspects and in mental abilities and talents, so mature Christians may vary in certain qualities, some being notable in some aspect, such as knowledge, judgment, courage, or generosity. Others in another. Compare 1 Co 7. 7. 12. 4-11, 27-31. Thus, in considering maturity, it is necessary to take into consideration that special abilities or talents are not the things that determine whether one is a mature Christian or not. The entire congregational arrangement, with its apostles, prophets, evangelizers, shepherds, and teachers, served to produce mature Christians, spiritual adults. F4. 11-14. Compare Col 1. 28, 29. 4. 12, 13. Obviously, then, those serving as shepherds and teachers had to be spiritually mature persons, not babes. However, more than spiritual adulthood was required of one appointed as an overseer or a ministerial servant. 1t3. 1-9, 12, 13. Tito textoi acute miritra longo, me 356 its sons, can you conduct them? Thus, whatever the identification of these particular constellations may be, God puts the question to Job whether he can control the visible celestial bodies, bringing forth a certain group at its proper season or guiding another constellation in its prescribed heavenly course. Mia. Seed tower. Meal. Often occasions of happy fellowship and spiritual benefit among the ancient Hebrews and, later, the early Christians. Meals also afforded opportunities for showing love and extending hospitality to others. It appears that the Hebrews and early Christians customarily offered prayers in connection with meals. 1-9. 13. Act 27. 35. 1-4. 1-3. See hospitality. Lord's evening meal. Love feasts. The Israelites appear to have had 2 main meals each day, one in the morning and the other in the evening at the close of the workday. Compare 3. 2, 3, 7. 1 Kai 17. 6. While many ate their breakfasts at home, others, including fishermen who toiled all night, apparently made it a practice to take some food along when going to work. Fishermen could also prepare some of their catch for breakfast. Compare Mr. 8. 14. Joe 21. 12, 15. There is evidence, however, that a meal, perhaps usually a lighter one, was served about noon. Act 10. 9, 10 Probably at this time persons working in the field stopped to rest and ate some food. Compare 2. 14. Women customarily served the food. Joe 12. 1-3 But at times they ate their meals in company with man. 1-1. 4, 5. Job 1. 4 In well-to-do, particularly royal, household servants waited on the tables. King Solomon's table was served by waiters having special attire. 1 Kai 10. 4, 5. 2 Ch 9. 3, 4. Drinks were usually served in individual cups, but food was often placed in a common dish. Those eating might take food with their fingers or use a piece of bread somewhat like a spoon to partake of certain foods. Mr. 14. 20. Joe 13. 25, 26. See also PR 26. 15. The postures assumed by persons at meals included reclining and sitting. G 18. 4. 27. 19. JG 19. 6. Lu 9. 14. A relief from the palace of Assyrian king Ashurbanipal depicts him as reclining on a couch and his queen as seated on an elevated chair while feasting. Reclining on couches at meals was apparently also a practice among the Persians. As 7. 8 tables and couches were used at least by some Israelites in Ezekiel's time. As 23. 41. During the time of Jesus' earthly ministry. The general Hebrew custom in the 1st century CE was for persons to wash their hands before eating a meal. This was a ritualistic practice among the scribes and Pharisees. Mr. 7. 1-8. See washing of hands. At banquets or large feasts in the time of Jesus' earthly ministry, couches were placed around 3 sides of a table. This left the 4th side free so that those serving the food could gain access to the table. At times 4 or 5 persons occupied one couch, but usually the number was 3. Those partaking of the meal usually rested on the left elbow, probably on a cushion, with their heads toward the table. Food was normally taken with the right hand. The place of highest importance on a couch was that occupied by the person having no one behind him. To be in the bosom position in relation to someone else reclining at a meal meant being in front of him and would also signify having his favor. Joe 13. 23. The individual having a person in the bosom position could easily carry on a confidential conversation with him. The customary 3 positions on each couch indicated that a person had a high, middle, or low position on the couch. When several couches were used, one having the lower position on the couch farthest from the host had the lowest position at the meal. Compare Mount 23. 6. Lu 14. 7-11. At least on certain festive occasions a large meal or banquet might be under the supervision of a director. J 2. 9 and could feature such entertainment as a music concert o texto e acute miritra longo. Deba 357. The destruction of those standing in opposition to God provides the occasion for a great evening meal. This meal is for the birds that will feed on the dead bodies of those slain. Re 19. 15-18. A very different meal is the great banquet for all the peoples mentioned at Isaiah 25. 6. Marami Middle. Archive. A Sidonian city or district that remained to be conquered after Israel's campaign under Joshua's leadership ended. Joes 13. 2. 2 locations have tentatively been suggested. One is the village of Mgeri, about 10 kilometers 6 mi of Sidon. The other is Mogadjez in Arabic for Caves of Jezan, a district of caves atop the Lebanon range and of Sidon. Measure. See weights and measures. Measuring line. A string, rope, or cord used for measuring. 1 Chi 7. 15, 23. Am 7. 17. Zek 2. 1, 2. Some measuring lines were apparently divided into cubits. 2 Ch 4. 2. The extent of a particular land area was determined by stretching or casting a measuring line upon its surface. Compare Job 38. 4, 5. PS 78. 55. Nick 2. 4, 5. Builders used it, as when laying out a city. 31. 38, 39. Zek 1. 16, and the woodcarver might use it to set the dimensions of an object. Isra 44. 13. On one occasion King David appears to have measured off the vanquished Moabites that were to be put to death from those to be preserved alive. 2 8. 2. Figurative use. In a figurative sense, measuring line denotes a rule, or standard, of action. Isra 28. 10, 13. For example, Jehovah made justice the measuring line when dealing with his unfaithful people. Isra 28. 17. His applying the same measuring line to Jerusalem as he had to Samaria pointed to a similar desolation for Jerusalem. 2 Kai 21. 13. Bar 2. 8. His stretching out the measuring line of emptiness on Edom likewise betokened destruction, and the use of this measuring line meant apportioning the land to the animals that would begin to dwell in the desolated areas of Edom. Issa 34. 5-17. David regarded his relationship with Jehovah as his portion in life. It was a most satisfying inheritance, prompting him to say, "The measuring lines themselves have fallen for me in pleasant places." PS 16. 5, 6. Compare New 18. 20. The heavenly bodies testify to God's creative activity, and since their silent testimony fills the earth, the psalmist could say respecting them, "Into all the earth their measuring line has gone out." PS 19. 1-4. Row 1. 20. See read. Meat. See flesh. Food. Idols, meats offer to. Bernami middle dot Bernay. A mighty man in David's army, a Hushaltite. 2-23. 27. Apparently he is the same person as the Sivak I mentioned in 2 Samuel 21. 18 and 1 Chronicles 11. 29. 20. 4. 27. 11. Mecharatite me middle dot Sharath middle dot ite. A term pertaining to a person or place named Mechera, to which Hepher, one of David's mighty men, was linked either by descent or former residence. 1 Ch 11. 26, 36. Some scholars suggest that Mecharatite may be a variation of Muakatite, as at 2 Samuel 23. 34. Mekonemi middle dot Konal from a root meaning foamy establish. A town in southern Judah apparently near Ziklag and large enough to have dependent, or daughter, towns. NE 11. 25, 28. Precise identification is not possible. Most suggested locations are based on textual emendations. Medad. One of the 70 older men of Israel selected to assist Moses during the wilderness trek. While Medad and Eldad had not gone to the tent of meeting with the others, they were among those written down. Hence, when Jehovah took away some of the spirit that was upon Moses, putting it upon each of the 70 older men, these two received it and began acting as prophets in the camp. New 11. 16, 17, 24-26. Though Joshua suggested restraining Medad and Eldad, Moses said, "Are you feeling jealous for me? No, I wish that all of Jehovah's people were prophets, because Jehovah would put his spirit upon them." New 11. 27-29. Medan. One of Abraham's 6 sons by his otex to acute Miritra Longo, Medes, Media 358. The tribe of Reuben. Jos 13. 8, 9, 15, 16. It appears that earlier the Amorites had taken Debir from the Moabites. New 21. 25-30. Several centuries later, in a fight against the Ammonites, the army of King David under Joab's command defeated Aramean Syrian mercenary forces in camp before Debir. 1 Ch 19. 6-16. According to the Moabite Stone 8, Israel's king Omri c. 951-941 BCE took possession of the land of Medeb. Line 30 of the same monument indicates that Moab's king Mesha rebuilt Debir and other cities in the area. It may be, however, that the Israelites regained dominion over Debir when Jeroboam II c. 844-804 BCE restored the boundary of Israel from the entering in of Hamath clear to the Sea of the Araba. 2 Kai 14. 25. But it would not have been for long, since Isaiah's pronouncement c. 778. A 732 BCE against Moab shows that Debir was by then under the control of the Moabites, and it was foretold that the Moabites would howl over the loss of the city. Issa 15. 1, 2. Medes, Media. The Medes were an Aryan race, hence of Japhetic stock, and evidently descended from Japheth's son Madai. GE 10. 2. They were closely related to the Persians in race, language, and religion. As a people, The Medes do not begin to appear in biblical history until the 8th century BCE, while the first mention of them in available secular records dates from the time of Assyrian king Shalmaneser III, a contemporary of King Jehu c. 904-877 BCE. Archaeological and other evidence is viewed as indicating their presence on the Iranian plateau from about the middle of the 2nd millennium BCE onward. Geography. Though its boundaries undoubtedly fluctuated, the ancient region of Media basically lay W&S of the Caspian Sea, being separated from the coastland of that sea by the Elburz mountain range. In the NW it evidently reached beyond Lake Amir to the Araxes River valley, while on its W boundary the Zagros Mountains served as a barrier between Media and the land of Assyria and the lowlands of the Tigris. To the E lay a large desert region, and on the S the country of Elam. The land of the Medes was thus mainly a mountainous plateau averaging from 900 to 1,500 meters, 3,000 to 5,000 feet above sea level. A considerable portion of the land is arid steppe, rainfall being generally scanty, though there are several fertile plains that are highly productive. Most of the rivers flow toward the Great Central Desert, where their waters are dissipated into marshes and swamps that dry up in the hot summer and leave salt deposits. Natural barriers made it relatively easy to defend. The western mountain range is the highest, with numerous peaks over 4,270 meters, 14,000 feet high, but the tallest single peak, Mount Demavand 5,771 meters, 18,934 feet, is found in the Elburz range near the Caspian Sea. Principal occupations. Evidently, then as now, most of the people lived in small villages or were nomadic, and stock raising was a principal occupation. Cuneiform texts recounting Assyrian incursions into Media present such a picture and show that the excellent breed of horses raised by the Medes was one of the main prizes sought by the invaders. Herds of sheep, goats, asses, mules, and cows were also pastured on the good grazing grounds of the high valleys. On Assyrian reliefs Medes are sometimes represented as wearing what appear to be sheepskin coats over their tunics and as having high-laced boots. Niseskaspia and CMEDIRAXESRIVELAKAMELBURZMOUNTINS EKBATANAZEDGIAOSMOUNTINSTGR is River Babylon OPHRTSR4ER Ilium Persi Engulf Assyria, Medes, Media 359 3 equipment for pastoral work on the plateaus where the winters brought snow and bitter cold. Archaeological evidence shows that the Medes had capable metalsmiths working in bronze and gold. History. The Medes left virtually no written records. What is known of them is derived from the Bible record, from Assyrian texts, and also from the classical Greek historians. The Medes appear to have been formed into numerous petty kingdoms under tribal chieftains, and the boastful accounts of Assyrian emperors Shamshiad V, Tiglath-Pileser III, and Sargon II refer to their victories over certain city chieftains of the distant land of the Medes. Following the Assyrian victory over the Kingdom of Israel in 740 BCE, the Israelites were sent into places of exile in Assyria and in the cities of the Medes, some of which were then in vassalage to Assyria. 2 Kai 17. 6. 18. 11. Assyrian efforts to subjugate the insubmissive Medes continued under Assyrian king Esarhaddon, son of Sennacherib and evidently a contemporary of King Manasseh of Judah 716-662 BCE. In one of his inscriptions, Esarhaddon speaks of a district on the border of the Salt Desert which lies in the land of the distant Medes, on the edge of Mount Baikni, the Lapis Lazuli mountain. Powerful chieftains who had not submitted to my yoke. Themselves, together with their people, their riding horses, cattle, sheep, asses and Bactrian camels. An enormous spoil, I carried off to Assyria. My royal tribute and tax I imposed upon them, yearly. Ancient Records of Assyria and Babylonia, by D. D. Luckenbill, 1927, Volume 2, pages 215, 216. According to the Greek historian Herodotus I, 96, the Medes were formed into a united kingdom under a ruler named Deioces. Some modern historians believe Deioces to be the ruler named Diorku in the inscriptions. He was captured and deported to Hamath by Sargon II as a result of one of the Assyrian raids into the region of Media. However, most scholars consider that it was not until the time of Cyaxares or Cyaxares, the grandson of Deioces according to Herodotus I, 102, 103 that the kings of Media began to unite under a particular ruler. Even then they may well have been like the petty kings of Canaan, who at times fought under the direction of a particular king while still maintaining a considerable measure of independence. Compare Juz 11. 1-5. The Medes had been growing in strength despite Assyrian incursions, and now came to constitute Assyria's most dangerous rival. When Nabopolassar of Babylon, the father of Nebuchadnezzar, rebelled against Assyria, Xerxes the Mede allied his forces with the Babylonians. Following the Median capture of Ashur in Nabopolassar's 12th year 634 BCE, Xerxes called Umakistar in the Babylonian records met with Nabopolassar by the captured city, and they made an entente cordiale. Assyrian and Babylonian Chronicles, by A.K. Grayson, 1975, p. 93. Berosus, known through Polyhistor and Abedian News, both quoted by Eusebius, says that Nabopolassar's son, Nebuchadnezzar, married the daughter of the Median king, her name being Amytis or Amir according to Abedian News. Eusebius, Chronicorum Liber edited by A. Schoen, Berlin, 1875, Col. 29, lines 16-19, Col. 37, lines 5-7. Historians disagree, however, as to whether Amytis was the daughter of Xerxes or of his son Astyages. With Babylonians defeat Assyria. After further battles against the Assyrians, finally in the 14th year of Nabopolassar 632 BCE, the combined forces of the Medes and the Babylonians conquered Nineveh. Zep 2. 13. Assyrian resistance was transferred to Haran, some 360 kilometers 225 meter the W, but though Assyria received assistance from Egypt, the effort to continue Assyrian rule was ineffectual and the Assyrian Empire was split up between the Medes and the Babylonians. Na 2. 8-13. 3. 18, 19. The Medes appear to have taken the northern Otextoi acute Muritra Longo, Mediator 360 Median capital. Ancient Near Eastern Texts, edited by J. Pritchard, 1974, p. 305. From this point forward Media merges with Persia to form the Medo-Persian Empire. Thus, the vision received by the prophet Daniel aptly likened the dual power of Medo-Persia to a two-horned ram, the taller of the two horns being the one that came up afterward, representing the ascendancy of the Persians in their dominance of the empire for the remainder of its existence. Diet 3:20. The evidence is, however, that Cyrus gave positions of power and authority to the Medes so that they continue to maintain a considerable measure of prominence within his government. Thus, the prophet Daniel interpreted to King Belshazzar the cryptic writing on the wall as predicting the division of the Babylonian Empire and its being given to the Medes and the Persians, and elsewhere in the book of Daniel the Medes continue to be listed first in the phrase the law of the Medes and the Persians. Da 5. 28. 6. 8, 12, 15. In the following century the book of Esther as 1. 3, 14, 18, 19 reverses the order, with one exception as 10. 2 in which the Medes are listed as preceding the Persians historically. With Persians defeat Babylon. In the 8th century BCE the prophet Isaiah had foretold that Jehovah would arouse against Babylon the Medes, who account silver itself as nothing and who, as respects gold, take no delight in it. And their bows will dash even young men to pieces. Issa 13. 17-19. 21. 2. The term Medes here may well include the Persians, even as the classical Greek historians commonly used the term to embrace both Medes and Persians. Their disdaining silver and gold evidently indicates that in Babylon's case conquest was the prime motive with them rather than spoil, so that no bribe or offer of tribute would buy them off from their determined purpose. The Medes, like the Persians, used the bow as a principal weapon. The wooden bows, though sometimes mounted with bronze or copper, compare PS 18. 34, likely dashed the young men of Babylon to pieces by the hail of arrows, individually polished so as to penetrate even deeper. Jer 51. 11. It may be noted that Jeremiah 51. 11, 28 makes reference to the kings of Media as among those attacking Babylon, the plural perhaps indicating that even under Cyrus, a subordinate Median king or kings may have continued to exist, a situation by no means incompatible with ancient practice. Compare also Jer 25. 25. Thus, too, we find that when Babylon was captured by the combined forces of Medes, Persians, Elamites, and other neighboring tribes, it was a Mede named Darius who was made king over the kingdom of the Chaldeans, evidently as an appointee of King Cyrus the Persian. Dar 5. 31. 9. 1. See Darius number 1. Conquered by Alexander the Great. In the time of King Ahasuerus believed to be Xerxes I, reference was still made to the military force of Persia and Media. The king's privy council was formed of 7 princes of Persia and Media, and the laws were still known as the laws of Persia and Media. As 1. 3, 14, 19 In 334 BCE Alexander the Great won his first decisive victories over the Persian forces, and in 330 BCE he occupied Media. Following his death, the southern part of Media came to form part of the Seleucid Empire, while the northern part became an independent kingdom. Though it was dominated variously by the Parthians and by the Seleucid Empire, Greek geographer Strabo indicated that a Median dynasty continued in the 1st century CE. Geography, 11, 13, 1 At Jerusalem, Medes along with Parthians, Elamites, and persons of other nationalities were present at Pentecost in the year 33 CE. Since they are spoken of as Jews, reverent men, from every nation, they may have been descendants of those Jews exiled to cities of the Medes following the Assyrian conquest of Israel, or perhaps some were proselytes to the Jewish Otextoi acute Muritra Longo. Mediator 361 Covenant exists, the death of that which has ratified it is necessary to be produced. Et for where a covenant is, there is a necessity for the death of that which establisheth the covenant. The New Testament in an improved version. The literal rendering as set forth in interlinear translations of the Greek text is as follows. Where for covenant, death necessity to be born of the one having made for self-covenant. Job 9. 16. In for where there is a covenant, the death there is necessity to be offered of the one making covenant. The Interlinear Greek-English New Testament, translated by Alfred Marshall. The rendering of the ke as covenant expresses correctly the writer's meaning. The renderings testament and will, found in many versions, are inconsistent with the use of the term in the Greek Septuagint as well as in many places in the Christian Greek scriptures. Lu 1. 72. Act 3. 25. 7. 8. Row 9. 4. 11. 27. Job 8. 6-10. 12. 24 Will and Testament also are out of harmony with what Paul is talking about, as he is speaking of the law covenant and the new covenant in the context. Neither the law covenant nor the new covenant was a will. At Hebrews 9. 16 the Apostle Paul was evidently speaking of covenants between God and man, not man and man as requiring sacrifices. And it may be noted that, particularly with the Hebrews, approaches to God in covenants with God were regularly based on sacrifices, the victims sacrificed sometimes being cut in pieces on the occasion of entering a covenant. It is quite obvious that the law covenant and the new covenant required the shedding of blood in order to go into operation or to be effective before God. Otherwise God would not have recognized them as valid, nor dealt with the persons involved on the basis of a covenant relationship. Job 9. 17 For the validation of the law covenant, the sacrifice used was that of animals, bulls and goats, these taking the place of Moses, the mediator. Job 9. 19 For validating the new covenant, the sacrifice was the human life of Jesus Christ. Lu 22. 20. CNW Appendix, p. 1584. The mediator of the law covenant. Moses was the mediator of the law covenant between Jehovah God and the nation of Israel. Jehovah spoke with him mouth to mouth. Lu 12. 8, although actually Jehovah's angel spoke representatively for God. Acts 7. 38. 3. 19. Heb 2. 2 Moses was an intermediary spokesman for Jehovah to Israel. Acts 19. 3, 7, 9. 24. 9-18 As mediator he was entrusted with all Jehovah's house. New 12. 7 In mediating the law covenant he helped the nation of Israel to keep the covenant and to receive its benefits. Validation of the law covenant. The Apostle Paul says, Now there is no mediator where only one person is concerned, but God is only one. 3. 20 In the law covenant God was one party. The nation of Israel was the other party. Because of their sinful condition, the Israelites were unable to approach God in the covenant.